Straight to the reading and confirmation of the minutes. Can we just take them page by page? Anything on page 1? Page 2? Page 3? Page 4? Page 5, page 6, page 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If not, could I have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes? Member Charles, seconded by Member Wilson. Matters arising. There is a letter from the Permanent Secretary addressed to the committee clerk, and I'll just read it as it is provided. Reference is made to your letter dated February 2nd, 2021, regarding the matter caption, which is the table containing a short summary of the specific internal audit queries raised in the PAC meeting. Further to the submission of the report prepared by the Chief Internal Auditor on Friday, February 25th, 2021, which was subsequently withdrawn, and your email of Saturday, February 26th, it would appear that the report completed Chairman, does not...
February?
Yes.
26, 2000.
February 6th, sorry, my apologies. February 6th, 2021. It would appear that the report completed does not reflect the committee's request. As a result, the Chief Internal Auditor is unable to complete the report for submission before tomorrow's meeting. In light of the aforementioned, the Chief Internal Auditor is requesting additional time to complete same. She would be grateful for an extension to Friday, February 12, 2021, or any date you deem suitable. Your response is anticipated. So members, this is the action sheet, the first request that the committee made of the ministry, and the ministry is asking for an extension till this Friday to provide same. So I'm putting that to the members of the committee. Any objection? Okay. All right. So the committee will get the report on Friday for us to look at it next week. Do we have all the members, if the PS has arrived yet? You want to check? Yeah, let's check.
And Chairman, that report, when it's in receipt by the clerk on Friday, will be emailed to the members, so we'll have sight of it prior to the meeting.
Yes. I'm just checking that all the PS and the team from the ministry is here, so the committee clerk is doing that.
There's another matter, Chairman, as it relates to the AG's department, to provide an update on the status of the matters raised in the annual report related to MLSS based on the information that was presented to the committee on the meeting held on February 2nd, as well as previous information submitted to the committee by the ministry. We were told that the timeline for that would be at the meeting of February 9, 2021.
Mr. McAdam, is that the prompt that was provided to us? This PAC briefing report, that answers that? Okay. So we were sent this via email by the committee clerk.
Okay.
It's called PAC briefing report. Could you invite them in, please?
Well, we had that before.
You didn't get it, member guy? No? Okay. Morning, Madam PS and your team. Could I again ask you to introduce yourself and the team from the ministry? Just speak closer to the mic. Okay. Thank you. Madam Auditor General, could you introduce your team?
Good morning, Chair and members. To my left is Deputy Auditor General, Mr. Marlon Macadam. To his left is Ricardo Hall, Acting Deputy Auditor General. Behind me is Deslan McKenzie. And to his left is Iselin Cooper. And to her left is Audit Principal Hyacinth Williams. Thanks.
Is the team from the Ministry of Finance here? I don't see Ms. Blake. Anybody from Finance? No? Okay. Not yet. Okay. No, man, they always come. They always come. Yeah. Members, we had agreed at the last meeting that we would start with today with a focus on PATH and some of the procurement issues as a priority. And then we would, if we complete those, we can determine after that the plan was to go to NIS, but today was to deal with PATH and procurement issues. Huh? What? Well, Member Sibley's had raised at the end of the meeting some questions that he wanted to deal with on procurement. So we said we would do PATH first, and then if there were some, if we had time, we'd do the procurement issues.
Chair, just to remind the committee, assist in reminding the committee what happened, I had indicated that I would like to ask some questions with regards to procurement matters. But subsequent to my suggestion, the committee agreed that what should take place is that we look at PATH, then NIS. If there are any procurement matters relating in PATH, we will take them. But if, and after we would have looked at PATH, NIS, the farm work program, then we would look at any excess procurement matter that is in the report that would not have been dealt with. That was the agreement.
All right. I thought it was something different, but I don't have any problem with what you're proposing. Okay. Madam Pierce, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Chairman.
Just turn off your mic, member, say please.
Sorry?
Okay. Ms. Blake, you can just, 1 second, Pierce. Just as you see it, just introduce yourself and the members from your team. Yes, Madam, yes.
Yes, Chairman. Based on the discussion last week, we're prepared and our understanding we will try to answer any questions on NIS, but our understanding was PATH and procurement, but we will nonetheless try to answer any questions. Before we begin, Chairman, may I be allowed to say something to the committee?
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Chairman, members, there's been much discussion, stories, and mistruths regarding the state of affairs within the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. There's been many negative comments about my character and integrity, the staff and the ministry in general. There are some who seem determined to make their name at the expense of others, whilst trying to sow a seed of discord and chaos. Members here present, and most importantly, the people of Jamaica, let me put everyone at ease. One publication wanted you to first believe that $49 billion was misappropriated. $49 billion, that represents 6% of the country's budget. But I guess when they realized that that figure was ridiculous, it changed to $3.3 billion. Chairman, members, I could not figure out where this $3.3 billion figure was coming from. But one of my very capable staff figured it out. And she said, PS, of this amount, $2.95 billion relates to outstanding NIS contributions that is owed, or was owed, I should say, from employers in 2014-15. $123.5 million relates to journal vouchers that were prepared late. $173.242 million relates to expenditure adjustment journals. $40 and $36 million, respectively, relates to amounts vied and used to pay the salaries for staff in 2016 and 2017. $5.99 million relates to bank charges, some of which was erroneously applied and has since been reversed. $5.3 million relates to unreconciled amounts that we are in discussion with the Auditor General to identify and resolve. Why would people use words to manipulate information to paint such an inaccurate picture? Let me restate, there is no $3.3 billion that is missing. How could $2.9 billion be missing if the employers did not pay it over to Tax Administration of Jamaica for it to be paid over to the ministry? Mr. Chairman, too often we dwell on negativity and fail to recognize and appreciate some of the successes around us. Yesterday afternoon, one of my staff brought some papers eager to show me, and he said, P.S., did you know that of the 12 pillars that make up the Global Competitiveness Index, the 7th pillar, which refers to us as a ministry, labor market efficiency, Jamaica moved from 65 in 2015 to 27 in 2019. He went on to question me and say, P.S., if we're doing so badly as a ministry, why then did we outperform the other 11 pillars that make up the Global Competitiveness Index? In 2020, Jamaica was ranked first in the Caribbean and 88th out of 145 countries in terms of global labor resilience. Members, some of you may not recall the days of strikes and active labor demonstrations. This new norm that we see with labor and capital in the economy did not happen and does not happen by accident. It is because of the hard-working women and men in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security who quietly work in the shadows to maintain industrial harmony and to provide social support to some of the most vulnerable among us. The public discourse over the last few weeks, due to wrongful interpretation of facts, has been very discouraging and demoralizing for many of the staff, for myself, and for many of the staff in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. The ministry is a super ministry. Last year, when many were, and some are still allowed to work from home, The majority of the staff could not be afforded that opportunity. They had to put their own fears aside and their families at risk because we are here to serve Jamaica. Chairman, members, I will not sit here and confound you or knowingly mislead. The ministry is not perfect, but we are certainly far from the picture being painted. We will accept our mistakes, and we will learn from them. The areas where there is need for improvement, we will improve and have been improving over the years. And so, Mr. Chairman, I welcome the opportunity to be here this morning, and thank you very much for allowing me time to speak. I welcome this opportunity for us to engage in a constructive and respectful exchange as we examine the contents of the Auditor General's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Pierce. I've heard you. What I would say as the members here, we all have a responsibility to interrogate the information provided to us by the Auditor General and to ensure that we get answers to the questions that our constituents would ask us. We do so in a spirit of seeking to get to the truth, and the members here will play that role and continue to play that role to ensure that taxpayers' dollars can all be accounted for. We don't have control over things that may be said outside of this particular house, but we have a responsibility to our constituents to be the stewards here as the members of this committee to ensure that there is accountability. There were two Sibley's and then Member Holness.
I'm going to yield to Member Holness so that she can make her comments with
Member
regards
Holness.
to the discourse.
Yes, as members of the committee, and I'm sure I also speak for chairman of the committee, as a team representative of the government and being responsible for accountability of government funds, both for you at the ministry and for us representing the people. We would not want you to take from the discourse a sense of persons attacking you as a civil servant or attacking members of the ministry. In fact, as a member of parliament who experienced COVID first, I can tell you ministry officials were out in their numbers through the day and through the night. And it was well appreciated by myself and my own constituents. And I saw the same going right down into Clarendon. And I know how challenging that was. For us as members, though, PS, and for the members who are employees to the ministry, please also understand that when we face the public and numbers are bandied about and we are not able to give any explanation of the stewardship of government resources, having sat at PAC or PAAC, then we are facing the challenge of not being accountable to the people. So in the spirit of appreciating that when the Auditor General finds issues, when your internal audit department raise issues and they go out in the public sphere, we have a responsibility to ensure that it does not appear as if we are all in collusion and we are covering up anything that happens within any of the ministries. When we come, I have an expectation, I was saying that as much to Member Guy, that whether we are from the opposition or from the government's bench, since the day I became a member of the PAC in 2016 as a new member of parliament, I found it my deep responsibility to ensure that I interrogate whichever ministry, whichever minister, because my responsibility is to the people first and foremost. And I'm really hoping that today we will have a better sense of it not being a personal attack And I don't know that you can necessarily misrepresent facts, but it would be good as we go along to always be in a place where we can put a dollar figure to the areas of concern and rubbish the figures that are bandied about that are not genuinely areas of any misappropriation. PS, thank you very much for your presentation on behalf of yourself and your team from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Thank you, Member Holness. We're going to go to start with the prompt, which was provided by the Auditor General's Department and emailed to us, and the copy is here, related to the program of advancement through health and education path. Madam AG, could I just ask you, or if your Deputy, Mr. McAdam, would just take us briefly through the prompt, and we can deal with the questions after that.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The matters dealing with PATH are outlined on page 108 to 110 of the substantive report, paragraphs 3.2.176 to 3.21.92. Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. The key issues are on page 2 of the prompt, and the main matters of concern are: 1, 271 million in unclaimed PATH benefits as at March 31st, 2020. The concern regarding the increase in level of non-compliance with the government health and education cash grant programs, and the other matter of the tardiness in preparing the bank reconciliation statement, which resulted in me issuing a qualified opinion for the March 31st, 2020 financial statements for limitations of scope. And basically, Mr. Chairman, the qualification, for those who would not be so familiar, it's my providing an opinion with some condition. Let me put it that way for in layman terms, suggesting that I am not giving a true and fair view in the for the full extent of the financial statements, because there are certain figures. In this case, it is the cash balance, which I could not rely on because of the absence of critical records or statements which would support that cash balance. And in this instance, the bank reconciliation statement was not prepared. And as the report would outline, that in November 2020, when the bank reconciliation was indeed prepared, it revealed that the financial statement, the balance shown in the financial statements, would have been understated by $53 million.
I ask, since the original report, have you been able to get the updated documents that you have requested?
We have seen the bank reconciliation statement since.
And based on that, you're still at the conclusion that you would not be in a position to make a, you said, qualified statement about the accounts?
The financial statements has already been issued, Mr. Chairman. The financial statement would have been issued in June of this year. So what I'm speaking to is a dated event.
So just for the public, the financial statements would have already been issued with the errors, and the Auditor General being in a position to not comfortably verify the accuracy of the figures would have said, look, my scope is limited. I could not properly verify this information because the reconciliations are not up to date. And what she's saying is that the future bore her out and proved to be accurate in the assertion that the numbers could not be verified, because it would have had an understatement of over $50 million.
Madam PS or your team or member Sibley's? On the same topic, right?
On the same topic, Chair, which I think is the principal financial officer, even though the PS is the accounting officer. I think with regards to the accounts being qualified is a question that the principal financial officer should give some comment on. And I would love to hear what the principal financial officer has to say with regards to our qualifying accounts, which, if this happens in the private sector, it's really not a terrible thing, in light that it could even affect share prices if the company is on the stock market. So this being happening is something that the PS, I would think, would speak to, but the principal financial officer, I would like to hear, Chair, his comments on it before I go into the specifics.
All right, so let me ask the PS or whoever is the designated person from the team just to respond to the specific issue that has been raised by the Auditor General.
Chairman, before the PFO speaks, I want to highlight that the issue of the bank reconciliation, it's not something that we're proud of. The fact is that, and I think many of us even personally would have experienced some of the challenges when a particular bank was changing their system. And we had quite a bit of challenge between ourselves and our bankers trying to get the bank statements to be able to do the bank reconciliation. Chairman, that as well as challenges with the software that we use, which is managed by eGov, caused the delays. As a matter of fact, while we were going through that whole process, I had to write a very terse letter to the chairman of that particular financial institution about the difficulties we were having within the ministry. And some of us were invited to that particular meeting. Some persons from Accountant General and other ministries were invited to a meeting with that particular chairman to express our concerns. I'm happy to say, though, Chairman, or should I say, I'm pleased to say that we have overcome those challenges. We have since gotten the bank statements from the bank. We have resolved the issue with respect to the bank reconciliation software that we use. And as of yesterday, the administrative bank account, the GOJ administrative bank account has been reconciled up to July 2020. The IDB administrative bank account up to December 2020. The bank account that we use to pay poor relief beneficiaries has been reconciled up to September 2020, and the beneficiary account up to April 2020. Chairman, when this issue actually came to my attention about a year ago, I asked the team, why can't we do it manually, meaning go back to what we used to do with manual bank reconciliation, where you literally go through each check. But you know that the banking system has changed since. You get your bank statements now electronically. Physical checks are no longer returned to you. And so the ministry was seriously hampered. And we just weren't able to get the statements required in a timely manner. We weren't able to get them any at all to be able to do the bank reconciliation. But we generate somewhere in the region of about 800,000 payments each year. So volume, there's a large volume. So we have moved it forward. And our aim is that by the end of this financial year, we will be current with the reconciliation.
Can I just comment to you, Member Holness? How many of the approximately 800,000 payments are made electronically versus still physically by check?
Currently or at the time? Because since then, Chairman, we have been pushing other modalities for payments since COVID in particular for the beneficiaries. Today we have, right, we had 14% at that time who collected their payment through cash card or some electronic means. Today it is 33%.
Still 2/3 collect them physically by checks.
Yes.
Member Holness?
PS and the financial representatives from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, I'm still concerned. We would have last week engaged in a discourse about internal control weaknesses. When you couple that with not reconciling and keeping up to date with your bank statements, even though it may be fortuitous that you're not experiencing fraud, it means that if there are payments being fraudulently made, if there are duplications in payments made by the ministry, it is going to take you an inordinate long time to realize that you have undetected fraud because of the risk that non-reconciliation presents. If there is any problem in terms of the financial institution and how they're managing your accounts, you are equally not in a position to say, look here, bank, you are robbing me because I'm reconciling and I cannot determine how you came about withdrawing X funds or Y funds from my accounts. You actually indicated that you also had a lot of bank charges, approximately over 5 million to be reversed. That all comes from being in a position that you're not reconciling quickly what your position is. And I note in going through the documents that you also had significant overdrafts. If you're not putting yourself in a real-time position, it is ultimately going to result in some costs being incurred that the ministry could have prevented. So I remain concerned. In adding to the question, I would love to find out the monies for the persons on the overseas farm work program. I just wanted to figure which account it was held in, and if it is in fact held in one of these bank accounts. So I know you would have that sort of cushion. And last but not least, and I suspect we will get to it in terms of a lot of these unclaimed funds. I want to figure out where are those unclaimed funds, like are they still in your account, or is some third party holding these monies to pay out to beneficiaries? Who benefits from the monies dispersed from central government through the consult fund, but not collected by beneficiaries? Just trying to figure out what happens with government funds and how we mitigate against significant overdraft charges when we possibly have monies there that the bank, and I'm going to use the term, can rinse.
Pierce.
Thank you, Member Holness. I'm going to try and answer all your questions because you did say quite a bit. I agree with you in terms of reconciliation. It was not a good position for us to be in. And that was why we tried to see whether or not we could even do it manually. But we do have, for example, certain or other checks and balances in our system. So we have our internal auditor. We have actually 2 dedicated auditors who their prime responsibility is to audit PATH payments, and everything related to PATH. They're dedicated to that. So we have that audit function that helps us. We also have, when the payments go out, they go out in duplicate listings that comes in before another payment goes out. And there is a recording on the system, all that has been disbursed and what has been undisbursed, and that is accounted for. Now, I understand, member holders, that is not the same as reconciliation, because you are correct. Unless you have your bank statements and you can do your reconciliation, you're not sure if some erroneous charges are being applied. You're not sure if another check that is not your check is being encashed on your account. So, but I want to assure you that we do have other systems in place to help mitigate against some of the possible fraud or collusion in terms of the actual disbursement of payments. The good thing is that we are moving since November of last year, when we got the entire thing between the software and the bank statements resolved. We have moved significantly in terms of the bank reconciliation. The staff have been working overtime to bring it up to date, because our target is March 31st, to bring everything up to date. In terms of unclaimed funds are periodically recalled by the ministry. So we have different modalities that are paid. We have checks, which, as it is in cash, it is deducted from our bank account, right? We have the cash card, which cards are uploaded and persons can go and use the card at point of sale and whatever. At certain times periodically, every 2 months, any unclaimed balances, and it's not any unclaimed balances, let me qualify that. If the card has not been accessed and used within a 4-month period, which represents 2 pay cycles, the funds that had been uploaded to that card is recalled, right? It's recalled, it's reconciled, and it is sent back to the ministry's deposit account, which is then returned to the consolidated fund. That is how it works. You asked another question about non-compliance, I think.
Before, one of the questions Member Holness asked was the unclaimed funds. Where are those funds being held? Meaning, have you sent it to a financial institution for the beneficiaries to collect, and the monies are being held there, or are there monies in the ministry's own account?
Okay, so just to clarify, the unclaimed funds, what I was speaking about, like the cash card, every 4 months, if the card has not been accessed, the funds are recalled by the ministry, sent to the ministry's deposit account, and then returned to consolidated fund. As it relates to...
Yes, you may not want to call the financial institution. So the money is on the cash card. If I had like a Cambio or whatever, and I'm helping to operate this cash card system, I would therefore have the benefit of those monies for 4 months until you claim them back. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Or if like it sits in your account at the bank, and it is really being drawn down by the financial agent once they disperse.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
they benefit from that money.
It is uploaded to the card, so it doesn't sit in the ministry's bank account.
The money is uploaded to the card then.
To the card, like
all right. So
almost
money is
like a
uploaded
debit card.
to the card, but they don't vanish, you know. So either the money is on the card, is carried in an account at the bank in the ministry's name, or the money is uploaded to the card, is sitting on Juliet Holness quick cash and carry business, so I am able to use that money. So I'm trying to figure out, when it is uploaded, who has the funds? I wouldn't even say stewardship. Who has the benefit of those funds while persons are over time collecting?
Yeah, it would be the bank until the person redeems it or until we recall those funds.
All right, one second. Member Sibley's then member. Member Guy, you were on the specific.
Yes, it was on the specific issue. I wanted a clarification. Because PS, you indicated that in terms of the cash, the card cash facility, that if they remain unclaimed for 2 cycles, then the ministry would. Now, could you reconcile, in my own mind for me, the AG's report at 3.2.184 said that 77 million disbursed under the prepaid cash card facility remain unclaimed since 2017. Now, I would, based on your information you just gave to the committee, I find it a little strange that the AG found that this amount has been there since 2017 if at every 2 cycles, having not been collected, then that amount would not or ought not to have remained outstanding. And whilst I'm on that point 2, we see here that the $270.79 million is another instance in which the banks are making money at the expense of the inadequacy of management by the ministry. This is one instance, potentially also in relation to the reconciliation amounts. They may also be making money, however small it might be, at the expense of the government. And, you know, it is something that should be avoided or could be avoided or ought to be avoided, because the banks are making so much money off the people of this country and of the government of this country that measures should be taken to ensure that at the very least that is done. And when you juxtapose that against the fact that when you have an overdraft facility, the interest rates that you pay on overdraft facility is so high, it makes a compelling case for you to ensure that, you know, this particular part is kept tidied up so that there's not the ability on the part of those enterprises to make money off the state.
Yeah.
Before you answer, PS, Member Miller had I'll come into you, Member Sibley's. I'll come into you. But Member Miller has a follow-up related to this matter.
Thank you, Sir Chair. The question that I'd like to ask, Sir Chair, through you to the PS also, is it a situation when the monies are recalled, does the financial institution gives an interest on the money that was there for at least a minimum 4 months?
PS, if you could answer. So the substantive question relates to the 77 million, which has been unclaimed from 2017, and how is that money treated by the banks in terms of whether it obviously is being held by the bank and whether you earn any interest on that money.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, it was last year that it was through internal audit that it was brought to my attention that the monies were not being recalled. When we started the cash card, that was the rule that because PATH operates that after every 2 payment cycle, if you have not collected your benefit, then we're going to stop preparing a benefit for you, and we need to investigate because we need to know, has the person migrated? Has their socioeconomic circumstances changed? Have they died? So there is this rule in the program. What the audit found out and brought to my attention was that when the reports of the unutilization report would come, the team would wait on an investigation to be done to find out what was happening with that particular family. But that was not the rule of the program. The rule of the program was, if you have not collected for 2 consecutive payment cycles. Doesn't matter the mode of payment, we are not to prepare any more payment for you. And so, Chairman, members, I will admit that there was a lapse in the procedure. Those monies did not earn interest, not that I'm aware of. Did it? No, those monies did not earn interest. When it was brought to my attention, immediately the instruction was given that we need to recall these funds and pay them over into the consolidated fund. Since that time, I've asked the auditors to continue to check and ensure that those funds, every pay cycle, because every 4 months there's a 2 month, right? There's a cycle, to ensure that they are being recalled in a timely manner.
Yes.
And so what happened?
Just sorry, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
You indicate an investigation is being done. Is it done by the same officers in the respective parishes?
No, it's the social workers.
Yes, but these are the ones who aren't they the same ones who, when people apply for a PATH benefit, are the ones who go and investigate? No, if I may, because there's a reason why I asked that question. It's a follow-up. It's all right.
Hold on.
It is a follow-up.
Hold on. Members, I just want to ensure we deal with one area and just clear that
so
before.
It's the same officers.
It would have been the same officers.
Okay, we'll get to that when we get there. I just want to know.
Just hold that. All right, member wholeness, and then I'll come into member Sibley's.
I just wanted you to complete part of my question and why I asked the question in that way and have you making the jottings. So I'm not just coming with question, so I get a better picture. Why I asked about the monies from the overseas work program, and I did take note of how long it took for the funds to get back to the consolidated account. I wanted to have an appreciation if included in those bank charges we have overdraft, because it would have given me now a better picture that the cushion that we have from whatever we are able to put down from the overseas program, along with, well, I am now just realizing that it's a year now that we discovered the excess amounts from the cash card. But I wanted to get a feel if, because of it, we had a cushion to assist in terms of the payments due through the ministry, and we weren't in a place where we were incurring overdraft charges. Because I'm still struggling to appreciate how the ministry reconciles sitting down now to prepare a budget, asking for the requisite funds for the next budget year, and you're still not at a place where you can reconcile, okay, how much money do we have left in the accounts? How much money do we have left unclaimed? Because that is no money that is either available to us or we have to work it out now in the consult fund as to how we balance. So I'm really hoping that we're not paying overdraft interest.
No, member, it's different accounts. So the account where there were these erroneous overdraft charges relates specifically to National Insurance Scheme. The PATH program maintains separate bank accounts. So when we talk about reconciliation, we're reconciling separate accounts. So the overdraft was a separate account. In terms of the farm workers and the contribution for the operation of the program, those monies are maintained in the ministry's deposit account.
Yes, I actually know the reconciliation are for different accounts. Thanks for that clarification. But I am aware that each account you'll have to reconcile separately.
Yes.
However, in terms of money and cash management, I am asking, is there a mechanism to ensure that you don't incur overdraft because you have $200 million sitting down in one account not used, $200 million sitting down in deposit account not used. However, we are paying interest on $300 million because we are overdrawn here. I just want to figure out if we're in that position. I don't know if you're allowed at the ministry to be doing money and cash management with excess funds that sit at the same bank, if you're not careful, where you're also paying interest to the bank because you are overdrawn. I'm not even sure if you're allowed to be overdrawn.
No, we're not allowed to be overdrawn. We're definitely not allowed to be overdrawn. Member, I think I may need the PFO to help me answer this question because I will confess I am not an accountant by trade. But before the accountant responds, the accounts are maintained separately, and we can't commingle funds so easily and readily. It's not allowed. We would have to get the approval of the Ministry of Finance, and in many instances, the approval of this Parliament because of the new fiscal responsibility, what is it called? Framework or rules. So we're not allowed. I can't move monies from capital B to the recurrent expenditure for the ministry. I can't move money that was allocated for under IDB loan or a World Bank loan to pay for or to move it into the ministry's recurrent budget. That would have to be driven by approval from finance with the understanding that that would have to come to this Parliament to approve.
All right, Member Sibley's, then Cousins, then Member Heroy. Let's just try and close each matter before we move to another one.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I want to go back to the matter that I don't think was closed, and that is the qualifying of the accounts for the ministry. And the auditor stated that this was due to bank reconciliation not being reconciled, and so they were unable to rely on the cash balance in their accounts. And Madam PS, you stated earlier that the bank, who was going through changing of software, had some issues, and therefore that provided some challenge. So my question is, through you, Madam PS, to the PFO. The Government of Jamaica Administrative Bank Reconciliation Statement was 13 months behind. This 13 months behind, does this mean that we had the challenge with the bank software for 13 months? It's been 13 months behind. What are the other issues that could have caused the bank reconciliation to be 13 months behind? And also, in the report, I am seeing where that bank account is up to June 2020. I am sure the banking issue is long over, but the bank reconciliation is still behind by 7 months by virtue of the report that is before us. Can you explain to us why is this so?
Thank you, Member Sibley's. The ministry experienced actually...
Just indicate your name for the purposes of Hansard.
Jason Anderson. Jason Anderson. You're welcome. Principal Finance Officer.
And your title?
Principal Finance Officer. Yes, Member Sibley's. As the ministry outlined, we had issues with both a commercial bank and eGov. The commercial bank, we experienced 13 months. We experienced a backlog now with the commercial banks for over 13 months. We could not access the bank statements, and it was not resolved until late last calendar year. Simultaneously, eGov, which is the government's main IT body and support, we had issues now with eGov for 6 months. As you can well imagine, based on the number of checks that are payments that are processed on that account, try as we attempted, we could not do the reconciliation manually. So we had to continue to write and have meetings now with eGov with the aim of resolving this problem. Let me say that it's not a position that we are comfortable or we are happy with. It is not the standard by which we are happy with. You made mention of the GOJ admin account in June. It was in further arrears, and because the matter was resolved last year, November, that is why now we are able to bring it up to this point in time. And I can assure you, members, we are trying our utmost to bring the reconciliations up to March 31st.
You have a follow-up, Member Sibley?
Yes, Chair. So the question, therefore, when the Auditor General would have produced this report, they would have had an exit interview. Was this discussed with the Auditor General?
It was, Member Sibley.
Okay, Member Cousins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my question is connected to a question asked by Member Holness earlier. And I know the PS provided us with an idea as to how the system works in terms of recall. But the specific question is, where exactly is this $270 million now? And I don't think you responded to that question. Is this $270 million being held by a third party on behalf of the government? If not, how much of this $270 million is not yet recalled? Thank you.
That $270 million is in the consolidated fund, has been recalled and remitted to the consolidated fund. So it's not sitting in any bank account.
All right, hold on, Member Holness.
Yes, you should repeat. The extent of the exposure would have been 77 million, which is those that would have been on the cash card.
Right.
So those issued by a check, once a check is not claimed, the money would still have been sitting in the ministry's account.
In the ministry's account,
But
yes.
those issued on the cash card is where we would have lost the benefit of either interest income earned or whatever for the duration. And once discovered last year, all of that would have been called back and everything remitted to the consult fund.
Yes.
All right, Member Heroy. All right, you're in line. Member Heroy, Member Miller, Member Holness, Member Wilson, Member Williams, and Member Charles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me say good morning to everyone. Sorry to be late, but matters beyond my control. Madam PS, I want to find out from you or the officer that is in charge, I don't know. Does the government of Jamaica owns properties abroad under the overseas program? And when I say properties, it may be a vehicle, space, land space, or a building.
Does the government of Jamaica own properties overseas?
Under the overseas program, work program.
Right. Well, I am aware of one property that is owned that we are, only one property. I'm not aware of, you said motor vehicles and so forth? No.
So we don't own any motor vehicles?
No.
But we own one property, and that property is what?
It is the property that houses the liaison service in Canada.
And we pay maintenance for that property.
We meaning?
Jamaica. When I say we, I'm the government, sorry.
It is self-financing, member. But yes, we would be responsible for maintaining it, but it's not maintained out of resources from the consolidated fund, if that's what you're asking.
You said that it is to house I didn't get the last part.
Jamaica Liaison Service in Canada.
The liaison person that lives in Canada works for the government of Jamaica, is a Jamaican that was sent there or somebody that lives there and was employed from there.
The office member is staffed with 20 persons. 20 persons probably would have been there from Jamaica. The majority have been there for quite some time, yes. So they would have originally come from Jamaica.
No, what I want to find out, madam, is it that they're on contract or they're employed to the ministry permanently, so we would know, say, okay, we are moving you to Canada and we are going to house you, or they were interviewed because they are Canadian and we, after being interviewed, getting a job, then we will now find residence for them. That's what I want to find out.
Member, the majority of persons who work in that office have been there for quite some time. They would have in the past been recruited from Jamaica, but to be quite honest, I cannot tell you everybody who is there and what their history is. It's a office of about almost 30 persons.
Member Clerk, hold 1 second. Members, I want us to try and, we started discussing some issues, and I want us to complete the issues before we move on. I know members have a lot of questions, and I want to ensure everybody has a right to ask the questions, but I want us to just go through the prompt. We still have some outstanding questions on the unclaimed balances, the reconciliation. I want to close those before we move to other areas. So I'm just going to ask members, if their questions are not directly related to these, let's just hold until we can complete it, and then I will accommodate the questions. But there are still outstanding issues, and I'll come back to you, Member Clerk, but I just want to ensure we complete this. Member Miller, your question is related to the specific issue?
Not the unaccounted funds, however, is related to PATH. So I don't know if other members have questions relating to the funds that are outlined in the report.
Our Member Williams said he did.
Okay.
Good morning again, Madam PS. My question relates to the AG's report at 3.2182. Unclaimed PATH benefits. And specifically, as it relates to the service level agreement. Now, the AG points out there that up to the time of reporting, management did not implement a service level agreement with the financial institutions that administer the cash payment under the prepaid cash card facility. Now, in terms of the ministry's response, it is stated there that the service level agreement for the prepaid cash card facility has been drafted and is currently being reviewed by the ministry's legal department for implementation by April 1, 2021. And I think that is commendable. However, would this, in this draft service level agreement, would there be a component of this agreement that guarantees interest payments
to the ministry for unpaid funds under the cash card system?
No, I'm told no.
Is there any particular impediment to this? Is there a policy block, or is it still up for negotiation? I know it is a draft, so is the ministry now having delved into this issue of, significant sums in the bank without any interest accruing to the ministry? Would it be prudent then for the ministry to propose that an interest component be included in the service level agreement?
Member, to be quite honest, that has not been put forward before, but it is something that certainly we'd be willing to discuss with that particular service provider.
Very well, thank you. And quickly, Mr. Chairman, just one other comment in relation to the, and I'm still at the AG's report 3.2184. Well, no, I should have been at 3.2182 earlier. I'm now at 3.2184. And it relates to the number of beneficiaries that the unclaimed beneficiaries or benefits, 1,823, roughly. Well, let me stick to that figure. I was going to round it off to approximately 2,000, but let it not be said we're seeking to inflate figures here. So I'll stick to the 1,823. Now, my question is this. Has there been any effort to disaggregate and determine? I know there is, in terms of your response to credit indulgence, let me just look at the ministry's, just refresh my recollection on the ministry's response. Okay, there is an issue of non-compliance, and that's an explanation proffered that because of non-compliance, then obviously persons do not qualify, and so the funds would remain unclaimed. Am I correct, PS? That is one of the reasons that we would have unclaimed benefits.
It would be unclaimed because the beneficiary didn't collect it or didn't access the funds on the card.
Okay.
So it could be a myriad of reasons.
Myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
No, I'm a member of parliament, and when I'm out there in the constituency every day, people keep knocking me, pass. They want to get on the program, and there are people who are on the program who say they're not getting the benefits. And it's as you rightly, the word myriad. We are confronted with a myriad of complaints in the constituency. So I'm trying to find out, because at the end of the day, we're here to ensure that the people benefit. The program was designed to benefit the people, and we're serving the people. So I'm here trying to find out what percent did we do a disaggregation to ascertain, break it down to say, of these 1,823 persons, 50% of them were non-compliant, 30% did just not claim their funds, their situation may have improved. Is there any research to ensure that the people benefit from what they're supposed to get? That's my issue.
Member, I really couldn't give you that information, no. One of the questions is, you see, if you notice, it said over multiple pay cycles. So it could be actually less than that amount in terms of individuals because it's multiple pay cycles. But we have not studied that figure and disaggregated it. Since you're asking, maybe it would be in our interest to look at it. We do know, for example, that people die. You have elderly persons who need to appoint agents who can't access the card. We know that we also have persons who lose their card or forget their PINs, things as simple as that. But remember, I want to use this opportunity to highlight something not totally related to the audit, but we are actually, in another month or two, we're actually going to be promoting an alternative payment method, because more and more the financial institutions do not want persons utilizing checks. And so we're looking at other modalities. We see the challenges with cash card. As I said, PIN and, especially people lose the card or the card gets damaged and so forth. So we're looking at other options, which hopefully in another month or so, we will be able to begin rolling out and making that transition to another payment methodology. We're actually looking at possibly direct deposits. We engaged many of the banks last year, June, July. We wrote to the Bankers Association asking them to establish what is called low everything, low cost, low everything, bank accounts for these persons, not just PATH beneficiaries, but NIS pensioners as well. So that is something we're pushing, member wholeness. If we push that, then the issue of bank reconciliation becomes a lot easier, because then we're not looking at trying to reconcile 600,000-700,000 checks in a year. But of course, there are other checks and balances that we have to strengthen internally before we go there. So I'm just since you raised it, member, I'm just using it as an opportunity to express to the persons here some of the things that we're looking at.
P.S. As a follow-up to Member Williams, can we be provided for this committee, as Member Williams has requested, a breakdown of those uncollected persons, the categories that they fall into, whether non-compliance, card loss, card stolen, etc. Because as Member Williams said, all of us as MPs are inundated with requests for persons to go onto the program, or those who are not, and it seems a little bit hard to believe that people would know there's a benefit and not collect it. So I think it's important that we get the data, analyze the data, and determine the extent of the problem. Just Member Williams.
Oh, sorry.
All right, Member Charles. All right, you have. Okay.
It's okay.
Guzzle. I do. You're the senior moment. P.S. My follow-up question is, what policy does the ministry have in place to assist you to find out what's the reason why some persons are unable to collect? For example, on Sunday, just Sunday, I met a 72-year-old lady in my constituency, and she broke her leg, and she could not collect. And she said that she got dropped off of PATH, and now has to go back to reapply. So if you don't collect for two times, you just get dropped off. Do you have any policy in place where one can check and see the reasons why? Because she has also reapplied and she has not been able to get back on PATH. This is concerning to me. And I want you to know that I did note your posture when you explained to us in the committee. We're not here to chastise you. We understand that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is a great ministry, especially for me in my constituency. It's really, really needed. But we are instructed, we're on this committee, and we must make sure that you operate with probity, and that's why we're here to ask these questions. So please let me know if there's a policy in place, and if not, if you can try to put a policy in place so that some people, especially the elderly, do not drop off because they had an accident or they got really ill. That's my question.
Yes. All right, thank you very much, member. That lady would not have been dropped off. What would have happened is that after 2 consecutive periods of non-collection of that benefit, what would have happened is that that information would have been recorded in our system, and our system then would not prepare a third payment for her. So it's not that she would have dropped off. It is that the payment stopped going out. Member, if you...
Just a question. How does she reconnect, so to speak?
She can... What is to happen, member, is that when that happens, the social worker is to go out and investigate to see why do we have these 50, 60, whatever number of persons did not collect their benefits, right? That person can also come into our offices. Now, members, I will be the first to admit to you that in terms of social workers, we do not have the required numbers. Right now, we have 1 social worker to 1,000 PATH families. Now,
so it's impossible then for
it
the
is
person.
the same social workers, members, and many of you, especially Member Williams, who operates right around the ministry. It's the same social workers that were out there with you, Member Holness, in the COVID response. It is the same social workers that when a fire, flood, hurricane happens, it's the same social workers who are out there. It's the same social workers that when you submit an application for a compassionate grant that somebody has died, or there is someone in need of assistance, any form of assistance, it's the same social workers that have to go out and do that investigation. So, member, I'm not here making excuses, and I don't want you to think that I'm making excuses, but unfortunately, because of some of the constraints we may have, we may not be able to get to that lady within the time period. But our policy is that
let me just ask though, but
after...
given the constraints, and we accept the constraints, what is the alternative for the 72-year-old lady? Can she walk into the parish office of the ministry to PATH to say, listen, for X reason, I couldn't pick up the 2 checks. I'm healthy, I'm alive, I now want to be re-added to the system. Does that option exist, or is she totally dependent on the social worker to verify her circumstances?
But Chairman,
she's not dependent on the social worker.
PS, don't answer us yet. Just add to Chairman's question as it relates to the persons on the cash card. Would they still be able to go and withdraw from their card, having missed 1 month of collecting or 2 months of collecting? Are they able to just go and collect from the card? Or is it right across the board, both cash, card, and check, that gets frozen?
It is both cash, card, and check that gets frozen. If you miss the 2 payments, you can come back on or resume collecting your benefit, I should say, but there is no collecting because I missed all of these months, because those monies would have already been remitted back to consolidated fund. Oops, sorry.
Member Sibley's, then Charles.
But member, the individual can come back to our parish office and say, and you as Member of Parliament can refer her to the parish office, or you can give us the information yourself.
Madam PS, it appears to me with 1 social worker to 1,000 persons that the system is set up to fail. A system that has 1,823 beneficiaries not collecting, and there is no investigation to date as to the reasons these 1,823 beneficiaries has not collected. It's no wonder Member of Parliaments are being bombarded in our constituency with regards to the PATH program being unfair. They are dropped off. In fact, Madam PS, I have a lady who is in her 70s, John Zoll. She and her boss went to the parish office to get on PATH. And unfortunately, her boss got on, and she, the helper, has not gotten on, and she see the system as a setup, and it's not for poor people. And listening to the fact now that we have 1,823 beneficiaries not collected. If they miss 2 cycles, they have a broken leg. We have 1 social worker to service 1,000 poor people. We don't even know how many of these were put back on the system, or how many of these persons were just clueless as to what happened, because the root cause is not known. Madam PS, my question is, what will the ministry do? I see you are saying you are going to roll out another payment methodology, but it is not the payment methodology that seems to be the problem. It seems that the PATH program needs to be rethink. And I am of the view that the ministry needs to do that.
Members, we're at 11:30. There are about 6 members who are waiting, some who haven't asked a question yet. I'm just going to ask the members who I want to close off finding number 1 related to the unclaimed PATH benefits. So let us just try and deal with the issues related to this, close this, and then we can move on. Member Wilson, who asked a long time, is your question related to this matter? Okay, all right. Go ahead, Member Wilson.
Westmoreland finally gets some recognition. Morning, Madam PS. First, I want to comment on your preamble this morning and highlight that transparency and accountability are the hallmarks of democracy. And we here are trying to get the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to be as efficient and effective as possible. With that being said, the ministry addresses most of the vulnerable persons within our society. I myself come from a constituency that hasn't been with any representation for almost 30 years. And combine that with being in the sugar belt, we find, and we know the story about the sugar industry going in decline, we find that there is tremendous challenges with persons from my constituency, Westmoreland Western, in accessing and getting any form of economic viability. They are read in the paper a lot of things, but I would say that if there is any attack being done today, it's on the efficiency and the effectiveness of the ministry. And it's the issue that we are trying to address. Now, with that being said, I note some key things within the report that I would want to highlight. First, why did it take so long to identify that these funds, the 77 million, it took almost 3 years to identify that these funds was outstanding? The second question, the SLA, it's from 2011 it was outstanding. That's 10 years. And we, thank God we have one in 2021, or it should be implemented by 2021. But from the AG report, this has been outstanding since 2011, correct? right? And so it took an inordinate amount of time to get this sorted. And then I have some other questions pertaining to, you gave some reports on how you updated the records, but most of these are from September 2020, April 2021, which we are now looking at another year. And it goes back to the argument about reconciliation, because it would mean that at no point the ministry is aware of their financial standing because there is no reconciliation being done. And of course, as a third question to that, I'm going to stop here. In terms of fraud, how do we assess that no fraud has taken place, being that our accounts are so behind? Right? And I think that's a fair question, being that, you know, as I said before in my preamble, that I have so many persons, and I concur with all the other MPs here. When the Ministry of Labor fails, is the MP. I'm one of those MP who is in the constituency. I see my people almost every day. So they come to me with all their issues. And when the ministry doesn't do their part, myself comes under pressure. Right? So I would want you to answer those questions for me. Thanks.
All right. I hope I will remember all of them. There were the issue that Member Sibley's raised, and I think it was also raised by the Auditor General as well as Member Holness about the program and the non-compliance level in the program. The program is now 18 years old. PATH has been around for 18 years, almost 19 years, as a matter of fact, 2002. And it is time, and the team has been working on it. It is time for us to begin to do a comprehensive review and revisit to that program. After 18, almost 20 years, is it doing what we originally intended it to do? And, you know, just a comprehensive review. I think it's timely. So that is something that the team has started working on. In your package that you got last week, there is a draft document where we're revisiting the compliance requirement under the program. So that is, it is one of the documents in your folder. With respect to why it took so long to sort it out, the entity that provides the cash card option for us, when we started that cash card option, it is with our financial institution at the time, the bank that was our financial institution, and we were trying to work together to find a mechanism that would reduce the number of checks coming into the system, because we know checks are the paper. At that time, used to get back the physical checks. It was hard to manage. Unfortunately, member, I don't know if we took it for granted or what, whether it's because they were our banker, why we did not establish a formal service level agreement, but it was not in place. And we are, as it's reported, it is now with the ministry's legal department for review.
Hold on 1 second, Member Wilson. Just let her answer now, please.
We will take Member Williams' suggestion about exploring the possibility of being paid interest. We will have to have that discussion as well. Yes. So, did I answer all the questions?
So, clarification. I read the AG report. It is a recommendation from 2011. So, it was
from the internal audit.
Recommended. Correct. So, I just want to make it clear that it was a recommendation from 2011. So, I know you took on in 2015, if my memory serves me correct. So, I want to know. You can't speak about your predecessor, but why did it take so long to say, okay, this has been an outstanding recommendation, let's just get on with it? And it follows, you know, I'm not sure I'm picking up a line here where it's the same thing that occurred why that 77 million was outstanding from 2017.
Member, I can't answer why it took so long. I can only proffer an explanation in terms of maybe the team took it for granted that since the financial institution that was managing this cash guard, it was an extension of our financial arrangement with them. We are correcting that, though. Oh, yes, the issue about fraud. We do have checks and balances in the system. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 internal auditors who are dedicated just auditing PATH and our business processes. Some years ago, we did, many years ago, we did have some kind of fraud with respect to the checks that we use. We have since, and this is long ago I'm talking about, changed all of that, the security features and so forth. I can't sit here and tell you that there is absolutely no fraud. What I can tell you is that we have put systems in place to minimize or reduce the possibility of that happening or being able to detect it if it so happens.
All right, Member Charles, Member Miller, Member Carencia, and Member Guy. And members, we're at 11:42.
Yeah, I'm almost.
Huh? For this item, 1? Okay.
I have to yield.
All right. I know that's why I want to close item 1 because I want to go to the other items. But the members are asking follow-up questions.
One follow-up question, PS. For me, let me ask quickly. Is it possible for me to assist the one social worker in my constituency? Is it possible for me to send an email with my constituent's name, scan her ID? What can I do to assist the social worker to help my people to get back on path? So I just want to make sure, I want to clarify that. Can I send you an email with that?
Yes, you can.
And with a list of them?
Yes,
and the social worker will go and check them out, or
yes.
that's
And
the policy that you
we have
have?
done it before with other members of parliament, so we will do it.
Okay, because if
you
they
have a
can't
group
walk,
of
if they're sick.
persons in your particular community or your particular area that you feel should be on path that are not on path, we will arrange a special application session within the community. We will work with you.
Okay. I just need to make sure I know exactly who the social worker is. Thank you.
All right, Member Miller, you're on 1.
Thank you, Sir Chair. It was refreshing, PS, when you said that the PATH program needs to be, revisited because of the 18 years in existence. I serve a constituency, Southeast St. Catherine, and as my colleagues and members stated, that the request that comes daily in terms of PATH. My question is to you, PS, can you explain for us, especially the first-time MP, the structure of PATH in terms of how does one get on the program? What is the criteria that is used to determine the benefit that a person will get? And if it's any truth to it that once you have a fridge or a stove, you're declined from entering the program. Can you shed some light on those matters for me, PS?
Member, I will try to shed some light briefly, but I'm going to suggest that since there are lots of new MPs in the House, that maybe it would be helpful if we had a special session with the MPs, anyone who would want to participate, where we can take the MPs in more detail how the program operates, the rules of the program, and so forth. But to answer your question, in 2001, when we were implementing PATH was replacing some other social programs, the food stamp program and so forth. And what was done at the time was, in terms of the selection process, because at the time one of the criticisms of the ministry was that it was a very subjective process by which persons qualified. I like you, I know you, and therefore, you know, I put you on the program. Family, whatever the reasons were. And so what happened in that time is that we worked with the Planning Institute of Jamaica to develop what is called a proxy means test. Proxy means meaning it's a, and I don't want to get too complicated here, but it is a model, literally a regression model, that is developed using data from the Survey of Living Conditions. What are the indicators that correlate with poverty, right? And so what happened is that you took the very subjective criteria to a very objective criteria based on now the answers that the person provides in that application form. So, and yes, they could be dishonest, which is why the social worker has to go out and visit and verify the information. So when that proxy means test is applied, it looks at different indicators. It looks at things, for example, the household size. Do you have children in the household? Do you have persons with disabilities? Do you have elderly? What is the housing condition of that applicant? It also collects information on your durable goods, but those are not a significant factor in the pot of things that are looked at. Huh?
Yes.
So, but what I'm telling you, member, that is over the years, there has been several revisions. There's been several revisions of the proxy means tests. I think the last one was in? The last one was in 2013, I'm told. So you know, remember, I did say it is time for us to revisit PATH. It is time to also revisit the selection methodology, because it means that in 2020-21, we're using a criteria that was developed in 2013-14. So the face of poverty, you know, changes over time. So in a nutshell, member, that is, without getting too granular, that is how you get on the program. And of course, when you apply, the social worker has to come out to verify the information. And it is not the same social worker. It's not the same person who collects the information from you that goes out to verify the information. That is something that we have ensured that there is a separation of the individual.
Thanks, PS. One of the questions that was not answered, who can recommend people to PATH? Is it that just people apply? Is it from the Member of Parliament's office? Who can recommend people to PATH?
Anybody. What is important is that person coming to us, whether they come to us or we go to them, to collect that information that we require. Now, member, I will tell you that, because I think there was a question earlier about duplicates, for example. We're one ministry that is looking forward to the introduction of the National Identification System, because we believe that with the introduction of the National Identification System, it would significantly help us in terms of the robustness of some of our internal systems being able to identify individuals accurately.
All right, Member Holness, then Member Carencia. We want to close item 1, finding. We're at 10 to 12.
PS,
Member Holness.
No, PS, I'm hoping that we don't come back on PATH next week. So I have to agree with Chairman. So PS, I want to have an appreciation of how many people are carried on PATH. Does the government have a maximum limit? I will tell you why. Most people trying to get on can't get on. I can tell you as a Member of Parliament, when they come to me, as soon as they say PATH, I say, stop right there. because I feel like I cannot give them any help or recourse. So I want to know if we have a cap. I am equally concerned, and so I'm wrapping up findings 1, 2, and 3, targeting finding 2, because I think you have gone fairly extensively through 1 and 3. When you have savings of almost $300 million, so for grade young ladies in probably say grade 7, all the way up to grade 13, it didn't say where, but pregnant and lactating mothers in school, you have almost $300 million saving, which is like $25 million a month. I didn't appreciate that we had so many young ladies pregnant in school. But if so much is not collected and the benefits have not been utilized by them, I think we would be very concerned as to why not. Because I think it's a very good program to ensure that a child, a young lady who gets pregnant, is still able to achieve and make her way through school. I noticed that you singled out males from the program below with the $270.79 million not collected and potentially being a saving. So a lot of the men actually in the latter stage don't utilize them. But my experience has been, PS, I find people in the constituency almost being in a egg and like a catch-22 situation where they don't have enough money to find the bus fare, and because they couldn't find the bus fare, they end up not going to school the number of requisite days, and then they don't go the requisite days, and that same child who is poor and need food and need the transportation end up not conforming and off path. I am trying to figure out between the principals, the guidance counselors, they know the children who are hungry, they know the children who can't afford the fare to come to school. Even with a limited number of social workers, why aren't we relying on that system to say these are the genuinely poor children? So instead of going to persons, parents, guardians, who are able to skew their responses to make use of the benefit as a boss who can still afford to pay the housekeeper, but the housekeeper's child can't afford to get the food and can't afford to get the transportation, principal and guidance counselors would have been another source of saying to us, we have this child and they're hungry. And so those could quickly be remedied. So I'm just wondering in terms of being able to capture those people who are genuinely in need, and when they don't get the benefit, how fast? And you know, I'm always going to go back with going into budget. So if you have 1 in 1,000 social workers, does Jamaica have enough social workers trained? And will you be coming to the Parliament through your ministry and its budget saying, look, we need additional funding so that we can improve the number of social workers in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security? Because we, as a country, literally have no other social safety net, nothing else for persons to be able to pull themselves up when they are down in the doldrums. And I need to ensure that outside of your meeting with us as MPs and Member Miller, I am a second-year MP, second-term MP, and I still need the path lessons because I still cannot fathom all the benefits and exactly how they work for the citizens. And I think it would be critical for you to do a session with all of us as MPs who are interested, because it is bad that some people have lived on path almost their entire life. They should be there for 3.5 years, reassess and kicked off if they're comfortable. But because they languish on path, the people who really, really need it, and I have seen many who desperately need it. I've gone into other constituencies, and when I look down in some people's spot, and I see the cardboard for their house, I know they genuinely need it, and they cannot get onto path. And yet still, we have persons who just keep collecting these checks and benefiting when they don't need it. I know I have done some checks, so I know it is challenging because all the beneficiaries are like by parish, but I think we need to find a mechanism, even if there is a budget for like a 3 month that is used to just clean up path and to do a reassessment. It is a critical program that is almost at the point of having limited to no effect on the people who genuinely and desperately need it, PS.
Member Holness, you have raised quite a bit, and I believe all that you have said has confirmed for us that it is time, 19 years later, to take a step back and to revisit the design of the program. With respect to the numbers on the program, we have never been in a situation where the monies that are required to pay that benefit has ever been denied. So we've never been in a situation where we deny persons entry to the program because there is not enough budget. That's never been the case in the 19-year history of the program. The Ministry of Finance has always provided the resources.
I must say PS, and I am third term, and I would appreciate the orientation. But I must tell you, like other members have said, when people come to me about PATH, I tell them it's almost like the lottery. I mean that. And the challenge with it is my own interpretation is that you obviously have a budget, and because you reach a limit, you have to find a way to say no. So you find a way to say no. But I tell you, there are just too many, and every constituency has it, too many needy people who just cannot get on the program for a variety of reasons. So I believe the session is something that every single member of parliament would welcome so that we can educate our constituents on, because we end up, as you know, getting the cussing when people can't get on the program.
Yeah.
But if you can just address that.
Chairman, the problem is we don't want people's business out in the public. But it would have been good if you had a mechanism that persons on PATH, you are able to share. These are the PATH beneficiaries for Kingston and St. Andrew. And the member of parliament could go through and say, but stop, but Julian on PATH and he makes so much money. You understand? Or because you will pick up. But what is happening? Babe, you don't have any other Julian. This is the only Julian in Jamaica.
That comment has not been recognized by the chair. All right?
So you can say Juliet is on PATH, all right, and she shouldn't be there. So you don't want people in a place where they're discriminated against, particularly politically, because it's always the concern. Somebody not in my party, them don't need to be on PATH. It cannot be. But it could be another trigger to say the social worker needs to check out these 10 people, because I have been able now on a list to see that they're on PATH. I know they're not supposed to be on PATH, and at least I can send a letter down to the ministry to say, please investigate these 5 people, please investigate these 10 people, they don't need to be on PATH. Because no matter how much we say that there is an unlimited amount of resources, we know it is not so. And something must be preventing so many people from being able to get on. And so if you can have our help in any way to be able to say, St. Thomas, this is the St. Thomas list, these addresses fall in that constituency, those addresses fall in that constituency. If you are so mindful and really care about your constituents, you are able to help to generate a report. We can split up and say Kingston, we split up in the number of constituencies based on the addresses, and you generate a report to say, look, please revisit these individuals. They do not need to be on PATH based on our observation, all right? But something has to give, because we're not reaching the most vulnerable.
Member Morrison, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And dovetailing on that point, Member Holness, we can't have so many people who can't get on, yet so much money going back. I'm right there with you, PS, when you mentioned the need for comprehensive review and also the need. Member Wilson, if you could just allow me to look at the PS. Yes, contact, right. The need for comprehensive review, I'm happy that you have identified that, and especially the need for social workers. But PS, understandably, even with the best system, if we don't have effective management, it compromises such systems. And so, PS, you mentioned that maybe the last review was about 19 years or so? I want to...
2013.
When it started. All right.
No, the last review for the selection methodology was in 2013.
Duly noted. May I suggest that we have periodic review, right? Even beyond auditing, but to include how effective the program is in terms of serving the vulnerable and those who are most needy. It's one of those programs, given its purpose, given its mandate, given how much it is needed, we probably need to have a sit down very often to say, how are we reaching the people? Would it be reasonable, PS, would it be a reasonable question to ascertain if we have individuals or persons who have long been deceased, but there may be people who maybe still have the card or somehow they are cashing in on the benefit? Is it at all possible?
Member, we have systems to try and identify that.
Yes.
We do have the social workers, and as I said before, we are short of social workers. And I wanted to address that point that Member Holness had raised, that we are in a continual process of recruiting social workers. Unfortunately, Member, I don't know if it is because social workers deal with the softer side of life. Their value in terms of compensation is not always recognized. And so, notice I said we're in a constant cycle. And so we recruit, they come, they spend a year, 2 years, and then they're gobbled up by other entities that pay them much more. And in government, we are asking them to have a first degree and paying them, not what I believe they are really worth or valued in terms of their contribution. Nonetheless, we are constantly recruiting. Our universities are producing social workers. They come out, we recruit them, but as I said, it's like a mill. When it comes to the design of the program, I think a lot of what, everything that I hear a lot of the members of parliament saying is that we really need to revisit PATH, the design, and go back to the drawing board. We have done assessments on the program over time. In the early days of PATH, when we just started, after about 2 or 3 years, I think it was the third year of the program, we did an impact evaluation, and it showed that school attendance for children on PATH actually increased by, was it 30%? I think it was 30% compared to children who are not on PATH, but that was the third year of the program. We saw where average school attendance for the PATH children went up. But what have we been seeing in the last couple of years, maybe the last about the last 5 years? We've seen where school attendance among PATH children is declining. So that says something about, I'm not sure if it's the program design or what, which is why we have
audits. Go and audit the school and what they're giving the children. During COVID, I don't want to talk about what I saw one of my schools doing with the PATH food and supplies that came for the children. They did not get it.
Yeah.
They did not get it. So it may well be that you disperse the benefits, but it does not get to the hungry child that needs it.
Thanks. And
which
right,
PS,
hold on. Member Sibley,
before you answer, there's something in similar. The staff I am recommending there's a rotation of your staff that are in your office in the parishes, because persons in my constituencies keep complaining. So the spot audit is a good recommendation, PS.
Yeah, it's a PS. That is why my point about management. And when I asked whether or not it is at all possible, if persons long deceased, if a benefit is made out and you could have individuals cashing in on it, it's even beyond your ministry. But in terms of effectiveness of how we function, right, that we don't operate in silos where information is transmitted. So the minute there is a fallout, we are able to arrest these. And I'm with you, PS, when you said that, you mentioned that maybe we need to go back and even look at the policy, because as members have pointed out about this fridge, TV, you responded that we are living in a changing time, right? So 10 years ago, not having a refrigerator or a television, when that could be ascribed as being poor, it is not quite so today. Thank you, PS.
Thank you.
PS, I would want to add one thing that you should include in your audit, those tablets that are given to students on PATH. Please run an audit to see if those students have gotten their tablets, and you will be surprised.
Thank you, Chair. Permanent Secretary, all of us as members of Parliament here recognize that whilst we're here to look at the national issues, it is said that all politics are local. And I would like to take back a message to my constituents, because the whole matter of qualification for PATH, as has been discussed by my colleagues here earlier on, is an issue that is still under fire and burning. Member Morrison indicated about the whole aspect of the assessment. You mentioned the proxy assessment and durables. And we come back to the fridge and the stove. But there is being told to our constituents by your social workers that they come into the house and say fridge, and they say no, you can't come on PATH. Now, I want it to be clear for the country to understand, because they do listen to PAC, that a fridge or a refrigerator, whichever name you want to call it, does not disqualify you from being on PATH. Now, 2-door, 1-door, or 3-door, the reality is that if it is there, it ought not to disqualify you from being on the PATH program. Secondly, PS, the whole matter of the children in schools, it was raised before Member Holness raised it and others did. And the need to cut off those students who do not attend school regularly. When you do that, you're creating a vicious cycle, because what happens, those students are the same ones who depend on the PATH money to come to school, but it can only serve them a couple of days of the week. Now, when you institute a register that says that you will continue on PATH if you come for 5 days of the week or 4 days of the week, for 4 weeks of the month or whatever, and they miss it by one, they are automatically disqualified from getting a program until an assessment is done. And it takes, as we have been told and as we know out there, the assessment takes a long period of time, because try get somebody on PATH, and 6, 8, 10 months down the road, as does happen in my constituency, the social worker has not come to the constituent yet. And guess where they come? To the constituency office or the MP and say, listen, I applied for PATH, and the people, I went down there, registered, they take all they want from me, but nobody no come yet. The same thing happens for reinstatement. As you know, we have had discussions about that. It takes a long time to happen, and we understand the need to have a retooling, a relook at some of those issues. But while you await a general one, the people out there, You see, while Nero is fiddling, Rome is burning. The people out there are suffering. And at the same time, as Member Morrison is suggesting and requesting that you have a look at some, because there are some people out there who ought not to be on path. I know policemen who not a constable, children on path. I know teachers who not just left school, children on path. And the very poor, the destitute, those who may have a fridge but still poor and destitute are the ones who are waiting on your officers to come and look at them. And they are the ones who cry out. They are the ones who line up at the constituency office pre and post and during COVID and say, MP, what is it that you can do for us? So I'm begging you, I'm appealing to you to send out a memo to your staffers who are there that despite the challenges that they have, despite the fact that they are short in numbers, to attend to some of those needs, because we are supposed to be all in this thing together to try and improve the life of our people.
Hold on. Let me just ask the PS to respond to the comments made by Member Guy and Member Morrison. Then I have Member Wilson, Williams, and then you, Member Holness.
Question, Chairman. I just want PS to please make a note to do a special request for funding in the budget for 2021-22 for the revamping, additional personnel, even if temporary, to get PATH properly sorted and ready to function in the way it should going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Member. And as I sit here, I said to Ms. Marks Willis beside us that we have to do a massive re-verification exercise. And I believe the only way we can do that massive re-verification exercise, revisiting everybody who is on PATH, we're going to need the support of the members of Parliament. We will take the recommendation that you put forward in terms of working with you to identify those who are in need and are not there, and the greedy who are there who really should not be there. So we have to, one of the takeaways from me, members, is that we have to try to, while we're not politicizing the officers, but we have to recognize the importance, your importance and your role, and to see how we can work together to improve the program and to ensure that it is the most vulnerable among us who are receiving a benefit and not the greedy.
Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to follow up on a comment made by Member Holness. And I am from Westmoreland, and we have a particular challenge in Westmoreland, which it has been ruled by one party for some time. And I noticed you said they didn't want to politicize it, but I have to talk for my people. And I can tell you, for those 30 years, we as the supporters of a particular party have been strategically marginalized. And I can tell you, because I have facts and they come to my office every day, right? I'm not sure how you're going to sit here. I hear your presentation. It's quite eloquent and it's on point and it's very rational. But the operations on the ground is very distinctively different. Yeah. And I wanted to appreciate that, specifically for Westmoreland. And the other two MPs that represent that parish isn't here. But I wanted to be on record that I would want it to pay some special attention, whether it is rotation or an audit of who is getting the benefits, for how long, why, but to specifically look at Westmoreland and see how we can address it. And I would want to add that the people in Westmoreland see the ministry as a system. You ever hear them talk about the system? And when them say the system just now work, and the system designed to make them feel, the ministry within itself is seen as a system, because even though their needs are genuine, and I can identify with it, because I am there to help fill the prescription and all that, they are unable to get any benefit out of the ministry. And PATH in particular, I have some issues with it because I have a mother now with 6 kids who come to my office for tablet. Their child was on PATH, and they were taken off. And the fact that they were taken off, they are still registered with the Ministry of Education as being on PATH. So they didn't get a tablet because the PATH office said they are not on PATH anymore, and they cannot get a tablet because the ministry has them down as being on PATH. So we have some persons in Westmoreland, particularly, I'm not sure of the cycle because I'm not familiar, so I'm looking forward to your orientation, that are of my political persuasion, and they were taken off, removed, and these are genuine needs. And when they're removed now, they line up at my office every Thursday during my constituency day, asking for support. So I'm at a loss. So I want to make the point about Westmoreland and insist that some intervention be made in looking at how that office is operating. Thank you.
Member Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Madam PS, I must say that I am happy for the I must say I'm happy for the education I've gotten today in relation to PATH and its operation, and the opportunity to look at some of the AG's findings. I also look forward to the orientation that could further enlighten us. I just wanted to ask a question though. We know we are in challenging times. We're experiencing the COVID pandemic. And I just wanted to know if the ministry, in relation to PATH, even if the ministry had implemented any program to actually expedite or speed up the PATH program, getting new applicants on board, especially in this context where, right now, one of my constituents used to sell at a school gate, and with no face-to-face for a while, that has gone. That economic opportunity has totally been obliterated. I have another constituent who used to operate a school bus, and he used to take children to school. That is gone. No, certainly there are people's economic circumstances are now challenged in light of the pandemic. So did the ministry, in terms of its internal policy, implemented made any effort to expedite these PATH applications?
Yes, before you answer, Member Williams, I'll tell you my information is the opposite, that when asked, officers who are social workers have been indicating that it's COVID time and they cannot come out to do any verification. So it actually makes Member Williams' point even worse. And so before you answer, I would ask you to consult and confirm whether our 1 to 1,000 social workers have been saying to people, look, we can't verify now, we can't come out, it's COVID time.
Well, member, I will have to do my investigation. You said that you have heard that criticism, and I think you would appreciate that I probably would not have heard that, but now that you have raised it, I will certainly ask my managers to investigate that. If that is being said, it ought not to be the case. With respect to the matter about expediting.
Yes, before you leave that point, it's not just being said. It is easy to verify how many visits have taken place over the COVID period by the social workers who are on duty. So you would have had an idea and a log as to what was the level of activity, and if activity has significantly declined, the numbers don't lie.
Yes, we will do some assessment, member Holness, independently to verify that, because we should be able to tell from our data management system. In terms of the expediting of information and applications and if there's any new thing. In May of last year, we had a special COVID payment for PATH beneficiaries, and in August, we had a special payment for students who are on PATH, with the exception of those two main intervention, which was targeting persons who were primarily already on PATH. Apart from our routine everyday activity, we really haven't had any new or special intervention. What I would point out, though, is that last year we acquired some vehicles, and maybe some persons would have seen it in the media, where we want to go out in the parishes, or, you know, not just parish, right next door to us. Member Williams is the MP where the ministry is located. Yes, so we acquired those as a move to try and get out into the communities, where we have developed the protocols that we are working with the Ministry of Health, because, of course, we're still in COVID, and while we try to reach the vulnerable, we have to balance the health and safety of the individuals who we're serving, as well as the health and safety of our own staff. So we have developed some protocols to be able to go out in a more fulsome way. Member, 2020 was almost like a lost year for us, because we were not able to do the kinds of interventions that we would have wanted. But we're hoping that with 2021, we will be able to reach out more to persons in the communities and get them on PATH. And I believe that with us working closer together, we will be able to ensure that the really needy get on the program.
All right, Member Heroy has been holding. Go ahead, Heroy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a suggestion to the PS, because I keep hearing the argument of 1 to 1,000. Is it far-fetched, is it too far-fetched that we could ask that not the Justice of the Peace, but the Lay Magistrate Association in each parish to lend a hand, because it is more of a volunteer service, so that they would do a first time or a first part interview for you on behalf of your ministry, and then it makes it a lot easier, because that 1 in 1,000 would know exactly who the new person that they will be going to do the second or the follow-up interview to get people on part. Because, Mr. Chairman, and we are here on a macro situation, but it becomes micro at times, because you now have to use your constituency as a sample point. And my constituency, St. James Central, dead center St. James, is 77% informal. I don't even want to use another word to describe the situation, 77% informal. You understand that we are, majority of us are below that line, that imaginary line that Statin will use to do their calculation. And therefore we depend heavily on the subvention or the intervention of the state. And when you visit communities such as Rose Heights, Canterbury, Gully, Albion Lane, Fish Lane, Railway Lane, those areas, just the mere mention of the name of the community suggests exactly the mindset that is there. And it is very, very, very hard, PS. It gets emotional at times, because just speaking about it, I am reflecting on people who comes to the office on a daily basis. For a little help, sometimes it is them say, Mr. Clark, our boss, can you give us just a bus fare? And I say, but if I give you the bus fare, what you eat when you go to school? And I have learned no empty barrel can stand. And therefore they need substance in and it is not that they are dunce, it's not that they don't want to go to school. It's simple, they can't afford to be there. And therefore, if the state is going to assist, we hope that it assists on a wide-scale basis. When I hear of $270 million, going back to consolidated fund. And I said, Jesus have his mercy. Miss Tiny has 6 children, 1 in a wheelchair from the day the child was born. You have Mr. Samuels who live beside Miss Tiny, who lost a leg and can't work again, and is unable to find food. It is just heart-tearing, and we as legislators and policymakers must find an amicable way, a suitable way, a supportive way to support those persons who we seek to serve.
All right, members, one last question, member.
Question. PS, I actually picked it up, but I think I also want to ensure that the public is appreciating that between the lactating mothers, that would be the young ladies in school, and the amounts that went back for 11 months, and then for the other category of cash grants and disbursements uncollected, over 541 million is actually going back, because at month 11, I presume it will either get more. I really do not foresee any major clearing up of the amounts that have not been collected. So non-compliant, 72,457 young ladies with an 11-month non-disbursement of 277.86 million, that's for the females. And then there is still an additional finding for the 270.79 million of cash grants, not disbursed because of whatever reasons persons haven't collected them. So you have 540 million between those two categories based on the notes here. That is 3.2186 and 32187. It would appear that there are 2 different segments of uncollected funds totaling 540 million, almost 541 million going back to the consult fund because it has not been disbursed. We don't really look favorably on those type of savings because it is savings from what should be the poorest of the poor and the most vulnerable and the persons who are dependent on our intervention. Both education and health, all of these benefits going back.
Yeah, member, I will tell you that I never added up the figures like you did, but now that you have added them, I will have to go back and examine the figures that you have proffered. I wanted to make a point to the members of parliament and the persons who are here that when we do that session with the MPs, we will not just discuss about PATH, but we'll talk about all the other programs in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Because as I sit here and I hear some of what is said, for example, Member Williams speaking about the gentleman who used to transport school children, therefore clearly has a vehicle, may not be eligible for PATH, right? You may have some persons in Mr. Clark's constituency. It may not be PATH that they need, but other areas of the ministry, for example, some of our labor intervention programs where we try to get persons ready for the labor market and so forth. So what I am, among all the other things that I've committed, we are going to organize that session where the members of parliament can sit with us, can interrogate and understand not just PATH, but all the other social and labor services within the ministry, because there is a lot.
Yes, let me give you back the figure. It's 548,650,000 as at 11 months for the young ladies and cumulatively for the other category that includes males, students generally, all the categories not collecting. So what I'm able to surmise so far is 548,650,000.
Yeah, okay.
Pierce, I have one last question as it pertains to finding one. It is said here in the report that 270 million .79 was disbursed, and no, was not disbursed. Sorry, correct. And 281 million, basically 11 million difference, was transferred. Can you explain the difference between those two figures? The 11 million.
The same point, the same 86 and 87. Where's the 280?
What he's asking, if you look at status verification, it says evidence was provided that 281.79 was transferred back to the console, but it in 3.2.148 it said 270.70 was not collected. So he's asking what accounts for the 11 million difference.
It's two different figures, because one is what would have been either disbursed and recalled, right? And remember, there was a 70-something million that was sitting there for a little while. So it would have the 280-something would have represented monies or checks or cash card payment, whatever payment method that was not collected. But this is not over one payment period. It is over cumulative payment periods. And remember, we disburse over $8 billion each year on the PATH. The 270 million.
From what I gather, it says we found not collected 270 million disbursed by checks and cash. Of this amount, that means of the 270, 77 million. So I would assume, based on the narrative, that 77 million is a part of the 270. The AG can clarify.
Yeah.
They said of that amount. It can be different. They said of that amount. So, so you would have returned 11 million additionally.
Thank you. Member, could you clarify exactly what your concern is?
AG, what we are trying to verify, the 281.79 million that went back to the consult fund, is that amount inclusive of the 270.79 million that was undisbursed, or is that a separate amount that has just gone back to the consult fund and has no relation to the 270.7 million in 0.32184?
Thank you, Member. It is the 270 would represent the balance reflected at March 31st, 2020. 3.2185 speaks to what happened subsequent. So it is possible that 270 plus amounts which were undisbursed subsequent to March 31st would be included in that amount. And I suspect that's the 11 million that you are asking for clarification on.
Right,
does that clarify the point?
Thank you, Madam AG. Members, we have exhausted our time. I want to ensure, PS, there were a number of recommendations that came out that I want to ensure that we follow up on and that you can report back to us at a later stage. I am going to ask you, based on the folder you provided, there was a memo dated February 27, 2019 from the Chief Technical Director addressed to you related to the National Insurance Fund audit. Could we be provided with a copy of that audit for the year ended 2018, March 2018, when we come back to look at the NIF? You following me?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
yes,
thank you.
I'm following you.
All right, members, can I... I've asked the permanent secretary if she could provide, when we come back to look at the NIF audit ending March 2018 for the next meeting when we look at the NIF, based on a memo that is in the pack that we got last week. Members, we have exhausted our time. Could I ask for a motion for the adjournment? Member Holness, seconded by Member Wilson. And just a point, members, I'm not 100% sure whether Parliament will prorogue today. I don't know. Because the ceremonial opening is next week, Thursday. So if it does, we would not be able to sit next week, Tuesday. But I'm not sure whether it will. But we'll just, it is going to be prorogued today? Okay. So we would have to meet after Parliament reconvenes. All right, so we will provide, the committee clerk will provide the dates for that, so please bear that in mind. Let me thank the PS and our team from the ministry and the Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance team that came out today, and have a good day. Thank you, members.
The new NIDS bill has been drafted and is ready for review. We want to hear from you. Go to www.japarliament.gov.jm to download a copy of the new bill. Join the conversation. Make a written submission to Clerk to the Houses, Gordon House, 81 Duke Street, Kingston, or via email clark@japarliament.gov.jm.
We have extended the time to the 15th of February.
Join the process. Let your voice be heard.
We live in a digital environment where information is easily accessed and opportunities are limitless. An age to think big, to innovate and lead. But beware, the digital space has its challenges. Manage your digital self carefully, because the consequences are real.
At least 10 incoming freshmen had their recent acceptance withdrawn after posting extremely offensive images and statements on a private Facebook group.
Stop and think before you broadcast and post messages. Before downloading third-party apps. Because your digital footprint follows you wherever you go. The Broadcasting Commission, your partner for a new day.
The term culture originates from the Latin word cultivate. Communities are generally made up of people who share cultural characteristics. These cultural characteristics are defined by various influences, including geographical, spiritual, and agricultural considerations. Certain cultures impose distinct limitations or boundaries that make them unique. The purpose of this program is to introduce you to the most interesting and unique cultures from around the world. Crete. Its ancient culture traces back through long-forgotten civilizations. Crete is renowned also for its excellent olive oil, which is considered to be among the best in the world. In our first stopover, we will discover the secrets of this mystical island, wherein lies both an admirable history and a boisterous life force. We'll examine in great detail life in La Malera, a quaint village on an Indonesian island, where the culture of life is orbited by traditional whale hunting and spiritual rituals. Crete, the second largest island in the Aegean Sea. Its landscape is replete with contrasts. The Mediterranean climate ensures that the lowlands are a lush